APRA forces Medibank to hold an extra $250 million in capital after last year's cyber breach, setting a scary precedent for the industry. Things are booming at KFC as consumers look for value, and there's a labour shortage in the dairy sector, and the labourers are cows. It's Wednesday, the 28th of June, 2023. Welcome to Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael. An eclectic mix of stories this morning, shall we say, from APRA to cows.
I'm amazed I got through that without laughing. The labourers are cows. Who comes up with this stuff, Sean?
Who? I don't know. know.
After the show, you have an interview, still on kind of the four-legged kind of theme here. Steve Peake, he only has two legs, but he is the founder and CEO of BTX Racing.
Yes, and racing in this instance refers to thoroughbred racing. So BTX is using blockchain technology to offer micro shares in racehorses. So if you're interested in that, you can buy into racehorses using this technology. It's a really fascinating chat. Not sure that you're going to make much money out of it, but could be good fun.
Yeah, it's a really good chat. It's worth a listen. It's coming up later on. The main story, though, this morning, Sean, the insurance regulator has told Medibank to hold an extra $250 million in regulatory capital as punishment for last year's massive cyber breach.
The Australian Prudential Regulation Authority said it would force Medibank to hold the extra money until the company can complete a more detailed remediation plan, and the regulator will also conduct a targeted technology review to ensure the company's standards are up to scratch. Last year, a cyber breach resulted in medical details of millions of Australians being stolen and posted online. Shares in the company dropped immediately after the announcement yesterday. They finished the day down about 4%, which was the worst of the top 200. The company is facing down 3 class action lawsuits from customers and shareholders because of the breach. Also, law firm Morris Blackburn has filed a complaint to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, which can force Medibank to compensate affected customers.
Sean, I mean, this is $250 million is a lot of money. That's it grabbed me from the start there. But I don't want to be kind of dismissive or anything, but why should we care so much about this story?
Because I told you? No.
That's reasonable, I suppose. Maybe I was a little bit blunt there, but please go on.
Well, look, the fact that Medibank has to hold an extra $250 million in capital means it's less able to invest as it might like. But it's a big company. It isn't going to break the bank, so to speak, or the insurance company in this instance. However, the fact that APRA imposed the requirement is going to scare the bejeebers out of plenty of other smaller companies in insurance and banking. APRA's now set a precedent on cyber breaches, and many other companies are just a dodgy email away from suffering exactly the same experience as Medibank. Many of those probably wouldn't survive a $250 million capital charge. The regulator is clearly saying it won't tolerate weaknesses in IT systems across the board. It's important because everyone in finance and insurance now knows what the benchmark is. It now knows how much regulatory capital they may be forced to hold, and many of them wouldn't be able to afford it.
And it might scare the bejesus out of them.
I love that word, bejesus.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I've waited a long time to hear you use it in Fear and Greed. So thank you for fulfilling that need today, Sean. How did local markets perform yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.6% to 7,118 points. Some of the defensive stocks went backwards, notably CSL and Telstra. The tech sector had a tough day. WiseTech Global was off more than 1%. REA finished 0.5% lower. But otherwise, most large caps ended the day in the black. Higher iron ore prices helped the big miners, with Fortescue up nearly 3%, Rio up 1.7%, and BHP 1.5% stronger. Westpac led the banks, jumping nearly 2%, while ANZ wasn't that far behind. National Australia Bank and Macquarie both ended more than 1% higher. Gold Digger, Newcrest Mining and QBE Insurance also did pretty well. And Michael, it was a good day for real estate stocks, and it's been a while since I've been able to say that. The sector itself was up more than 2%, with some of the better performers, including Scentre Group, which rose 4%. Others that did pretty well were Abacus, Charter Hall and Mirvac. It follows news over the past fortnight that New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has offered property developers an extra 30% height on apartment buildings worth more than $75 million. That's enormous. The condition is that they subsidise 15% of the homes all about affordable housing. Also, the developments need to be within 800 metres of transport hubs. As this news has filtered out, some of the real estate investment trusts have done pretty well.
That is interesting. What about international markets? What's going on?
Trading on Wall Street remains fairly mixed. At the moment, it's pretty much all about the prevailing view that the world's largest economy is heading towards a recession, and interest rate cuts, which had been penciled in for later this year, are now not likely until 2024. That's putting downward pressure on the bourse. Oil is up a bit after fears of more turmoil in Russia subsided. Gold is steady, as is coal. Iron ore prices are higher. I mentioned that. That's after a Chinese official said that growth had picked up this quarter and more stimulus is on the cards. And Michael, the Aussie dollar is buying just over 67 US cents.
Yeah, very big day in the US. Sean, there's a book launching over there.
Is there really?
In just a few hours, yes.
No, surely what? A new unfounded author?
They might be heading towards a recession, Sean, but I tell you what, literary markets are abuzz with excitement. I might be overstating it a little bit, but How to Be Remembered goes on sale officially kind of overnight in the US, and there'll be a launch held in just a couple of hours. So it's all very exciting.
Very exciting, Michael. It's such an incredible achievement. Well done.
And that is the first and last time you'll ever hear me mention it on this podcast, Sean.
Can I just tell you, I want to boast about something too. I've got that smug grin this morning that one gets when they go to the dentist.
Can I say you're looking particularly shiny in the mouth today?
Yeah, I am. Well, they cleaned my teeth. No problems, no fillings. And you walk out knowing that you don't have to go back in for another 12 months. Feeling pretty good about myself, Michael.
Do you have any fillings?
Oh, I do, from years ago. Why?
That's impressive, though, to be heading to the dentist at your age and not needing any work done.
Can't we go to the break, please?
It was intended as a compliment, Sean. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, BHP Chief Executive Mike Henry says the mining group will not be investing any further growth dollars in Queensland after the state's increase in coal royalties, saying the changes were unpredictable and unreasonable. That is a big whack.
Not happy Anastasia. In a speech to the World Mining Congress in Brisbane, Mr. Henry spoke about Chile, where the government has attempted to increase royalties on copper production, but is willing to enter into respectful discussions and strike a balance. That's according to Mr. Henry. Now, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk seemed fairly unfazed about it. She was announcing the state's critical mineral strategy yesterday. She shrugged off the threats from BHP, saying there are plenty of other investors in Queensland. Henry was more positive about the federal government's critical mineral strategy. He backed the approach, saying there was no need for additional subsidies for the sector.
Opposition leader Peter Dutton says the Albanese government's $110 million support package for Ukraine is depriving it of the military equipment it needs to resist Russia's illegal invasion.
Dutton said the Albanese government could provide Ukraine with Hawkeye mobility vehicles and also increase the manufacturing of those vehicles in Australia. That would provide significant benefits in the fight against Russia, he said. The government's package, announced earlier in the week, didn't include Hawkeye vehicles, even though Ukraine had specifically asked for them. Defence Minister Richard Marles rebuffed criticism of the package, saying it's the fourth assistance program from the Labor government, and Ukraine and other European nations understand that Australia is punching above its weight in respect to the assistance.
Sean, this is interesting. One area of the economy where the cost of living pressures haven't yet bitten, well, not, I suppose, too hard, is travel, with Qantas saying it doesn't think the consumer slowdown will affect earnings.
The national carrier yesterday said its domestic capacity is back to pre-pandemic levels, and it's added 11 international routes to meet demand since mid-May. This school holiday period, Qantas expects to carry 4 million passengers. Pretty amazing. The top domestic leisure destinations include the Gold Coast and Cairns, not surprising given the weather, while new international routes include Sydney, Auckland, New York, and Perth-Rome. Qantas said it's taken delivery of 6 new aircraft since January, including its 8th Airbus A320neo long-range aircraft. The 9th is due next month. Michael, something I'm sure you'll look forward to.
Oh, very excited by any aircraft story, Sean. Collins Foods, owner of 272 KFC fast food restaurants, says persistent inflation is putting its profit margins under pressure, but same-store sales growth has surged in recent weeks, and that sent its share price up 18%.
Yes. Now, the cost of running KFC outlets is rising thanks to increased wages, energy prices and the cost of ingredients. As a result, the group said profit for the 12 months to the end of April was down 77%. Not helping was a $37 million impairment related to its 28 Taco Bell outlets in Australia, which really aren't doing so well. Now, Chief Executive Joy O'Malley said households were recognising the good value the brand offered, and in the last 7 weeks, sales across the same stores have jumped by nearly 9%. That's why the share price took off yesterday. The group also operates 48 KFC outlets in the Netherlands and 16 in Germany. The local Taco Bell outlets, 15 of which are in Queensland, 9 in Victoria and 4 in Western Australia, made an overall loss of $1.5 million last year. Clearly, we love the chicken, not so much the taco.
Oh, you changed pronunciation there at the end.
I did.
That is what I love about you, is the fact that we have ridiculed you mercilessly in the past for saying taco instead of taco. I was just impressed that you were so kind of confident in yourself that you would continue to mispronounce it. So,
or ignorant, one or the other.
No. It's confidence. Now, Sean, the story that nearly made me lose it at the start of the show. There's a labour shortage in the dairy industry in Australia, and by labour, I mean not enough cows to supply milk, and that's what's pushing up prices.
Yes, there's been a 9% drop in the volume of milk being produced by dairy farmers in Australia over the past 2 years, or about 700 million litres. And there's plenty of competition for the milk, including private label companies like Woolworths and Coles. Also, input costs are rising. Bottom line, for most of us, is that milk prices are likely to rise. In fact, this is happening as global milk prices are actually falling. Barry Irvin, the executive chair of Bega Cheese, which owns the Dairy Farmers, Big M and Farmers Union milk brands, as well as Vegemite, I might just add that, said as a result of price pressures, the group is reviewing some of its operations in country Victoria. And Michael, it isn't just the cows in short supply, there's also a shortage of people to milk them, according to Irvin. There you go.
Uber, Sean, has promoted 2 Australians, putting them in charge of $2.5 billion in global advertising and marketing spending after their local success.
So Georgie Jeffries has been given the reins of marketing in the United States and Canada, which is easily Uber's largest single market. Lucinda Barlow, who was leading Uber in Asia Pacific, has been put in charge of international marketing in the more than 60 countries that aren't the US and Canada, according to a report in the Financial Review. The rise of Australians in the ranks of Uber reflects the success of the Uber campaign here, a campaign that has helped Uber take a 55% market share in Australia's online food ordering sector. I've got to say, I love those ads. The Kardashians, Mark Philippoussis, where he goes, do you think anyone can change their nickname? Like, can Uber change your nickname? And the guy says, yeah, I think so. Then someone walks past him and goes, hi, Pooh. They're just great ads. Anyway, they've done very well. Uber spent about $2.5 billion on advertising in the past 2 years globally, $2.5 billion, another $3.3 billion on discounts, promotions and loyalty programs. The success in Australia means a couple of Aussies have done very well and been promoted.
Did you see I can't engage with you anymore now on anything except for business news. I'm just trying to keep us on track. I'm watching the clock here, Sean, and I'm mindful of the fact that the clock is ticking. So
let's keep going.
International news. President Joe Biden said that the US and NATO played no role in the Wagner Group's short-lived insurrection in Russia, calling the uprising and the longer-term challenges it poses for President Vladimir Putin's authority a struggle within the Russian system.
Biden and US allies supporting Ukraine want to be seen a long way away from the mercenaries' insurgency, which is the biggest threat to Putin in his 2 decades leading Russia. They're concerned that Putin could use accusations of Western involvement to rally Russians to his defense. Meanwhile, Putin appeared on TV yesterday morning in his first public comments since the rebellion. He said Russia's enemies had hoped the mutiny would succeed in dividing and weakening Russia, but they miscalculated, is what he said. He identified the enemies as the neo-Nazis in Kyiv, their Western patrons and other national traders. He also accused the Wagner Group leaders of betraying their country.
Sean, China is on course to achieve its 5% target for economic growth in 2023, set by Beijing earlier this year, according to Premier Li Qiang, who also slammed Western efforts to de-risk the global economy.
Li addressed a meeting of global political and business leaders at the World Economic Forum in northern China, known colloquially as the Summer Davos. The event returned after a 3-year hiatus caused by the COVID pandemic. Now, China's grappling with a slowing post-COVID recovery, with a number of lacklustre indicators in recent weeks signalling the rebound is running out of steam. Its central bank last week cut key interest rates in a bid to counter the slowdown. There are also reports of a potential upcoming tranche of measures targeting multiple areas of the economy. But the Chinese premier yesterday projected a positive outlook for the domestic economy, reassuring investors that China was fully confident and capable of developing stable, high-quality growth over the longer term. He added that the nation would roll out more practical and effective measures on expanding domestic demand and stimulating market dynamism. He also slammed efforts in the West to de-risk the global economy as a false proposition.
All right, last one, Sean. A fairly serious story to finish on today. Malaria has spread from mosquitoes to humans inside the US for the first time in 20 years.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said 4 cases of mosquito-transmitted malaria were reported in Florida within the last 2 months, and a single case was also found in Texas. All patients are okay. They're improving after receiving treatment. The CDC said that Anopheles mosquitoes, which are found throughout many regions of the country, are capable of transmitting malaria if they feed on a malaria-infected person. However, it stressed the risk of catching malaria in the US remains extremely low. Before COVID, some 2,000 malaria cases were reported in the US each year, almost all of them coming from travellers who had visited malarial countries. Infections led to between 5 and 10 deaths annually.
Okay, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview, and today you're speaking with Steve Peake, the founder and CEO of BTX Racing.
Yeah, it's all about using blockchain technology to create a system where you can buy micro shares in thoroughbreds, in racehorses. Very, very, I quite like that one. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really interesting chat. Definitely worth a listen. Sean, today is, of course, Wednesday, which means there's a new episode as well of How Do They Afford That? Out today. Me and Canna Campbell, the founder of Sugar Mama TV, talking today about all things pet insurance. Basically, is it worth it? The pros, the cons, the costs, and just going through that in some detail. Definitely worth a listen if you happen to have any animals in your household.
Well, I wish I had listened to it because only about 3 months ago I got pet insurance for the first time, or I got a program which alleviates the cost of my pet. I've always been against it, but at some point I thought maybe I should. I should have listened to you guys first, though, before making the decision.
Well, no, you can still listen to it today. It won't actually change any of the decisions that you made, but it might make you feel better about them, Sean.
Or worse, Michael, or worse. We'll see.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 28th of June, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and stay up to date on all the business news with Alexa and your Amazon Echo smart speaker. Simply say, Alexa, play the Fear and Greed podcast to catch the latest episode. You can get yours now at amazon.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.